All right, class, here is a video for your Unit 2A quiz study guide. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna define some terms. Variables. And on the quiz, it's not like you're gonna have to define these and write them out. You're just gonna have to be able to recognize them. But what is a variable? Look, guys, it's a letter, right? Some examples are X, Y, Z, but it can be any letter, A, all of them. Those are all variables. A constant, remember, a constant is a number. It's a number without a letter. So an example would be, I don't know, 5 or -7. So those are numbers, they don't have a variable, they don't have a letter, so those are constant. Coefficients is the number in front of a variable. So it's the number in front of a variable or a number in front of a letter. So like 4x, 4 would be my coefficient. -7x, -7 would be my coefficient, okay? So it's being multiplied by a variable. All right, next, let's identify the parts of the given expression. Number of terms. Remember, number of terms are separated by pluses and minuses, not negatives, but pluses and minuses. So if I see 2 of those, then that means I have to have 3 terms. So there are 3 terms, 4x, 6, and -9x squared. So let's go ahead and list them. It doesn't tell us to list them, but let's list them anyway. So they're 4x, comma, that's a +6, comma, and then the -9x squared. Now look how I listed those. I didn't just write it exactly how it was written there. I put commas between them. If you're asked that on the quiz, make sure you do that. Let's list our variables. Well, I see an x and an x, but I don't have to list it twice. It's an x. List the constants. So remember, we're looking for a number without a letter. Well, that 4 is attached to a letter. That -9 is attached to a letter, so those are not constants. But that +6 or that +6 is. Let's list our coefficients. Remember, coefficients are numbers in front of a variable. So this variable has a number in front of it. It's 4. And what's in front of that x squared? It's not a 9, it's a -9. So that sign is important. Next, we're going to write each as an algebraic expression. 3 increased by 5, because you have a chart that has all these terms in it. Increase, less than, all those. So use it. So increased is plus, so that would just be 3 plus 5. Since this is another increase, I'm going to skip to number 5. 10 increased by x. 10 plus x. C, less than 30. This less than, we need to, when we see less than, we need to flip. So we need to write it opposite of how we see it, but it's still minus C. All right, so remember, less than, we're going to flip the order that we see the numbers or the variables. So next we're going to write each as a verbal expression. So now we're doing the backwards of this. This we went from the verbal expression to the algebraic expression. Now we're going from the algebraic to the verbal. So 7 plus. You can choose any word that's underneath that plus category to write here, but I'm just going to keep it simple. 7 increased by n. Look, we can't use the words plus or minus, so remember that. 21 over 3, that is the quotient. Again, you could come up with other ones, but that's the one I'm using, of 21 and 3. And then this one, we need a word for multiplication, right? So we have to have a word for multiplication, and then we're gonna have to have a word for this increased also. So I'm gonna do, let's see, 2 I can do twice or increased by 3. So the twice takes care of that, multiplying by 2. Increased by 3 takes care of that, plus 3. All right? And again, there are multiple answers. You could probably have, I don't know, 4 or 5, maybe even more answers for each one of those. That would be correct. So yours does not have to match mine, but it's just a starting point. All right, let me make sure I got my paper lined up again. All right, solve each equation. So I've got n divided by 4 equals -3. This is a one-step equation. Trying to get n by itself. What's going on between the n and the 4? There's division. So the inverse of division is multiply. These cancel. That gives me n equals -3 times 4. And I want you to look how I wrote that. I put it in parentheses, times 4, because again, we don't use the multiplication sign in high school anymore. So you can type this part in exactly how you see it in your calculator. And your answer will be -12. -3 plus x equals -22. Remember, we look at the constant. The constant is -3. That's what we're going to move first. Inverse of -3 is +3. Those cancel. That leaves me x equals, I'm going to punch it in exactly how I would read that. I would read that as -22 plus 3. And my answer is -19. So punch it in your calculator how you would read it. Okay? -63 equals 6k minus 9. K is on this side of the equal sign, but it's not a big deal. On none of these did I have a common, I'm drawing a blank, like terms, so that's why I could go right into solving. All right, so I'm still going to start with the constant that's on the same side as the variable. So the variable has switched to the other side, but there's only one of them, so we're good. All right, so we're going to deal with that -9 first. So I'm going to add 9. Again, punch that exactly into your calculator how you would read it. -63 plus 9. -63 plus 9. And that's -54. I've got a 6 times a k. I need to divide. So again, I told y'all on the practice problems, create a fraction. Punch it in exactly how you see it on your paper, and that'll eliminate some of the mistakes. That gives us -9, so that's -9 equals k. And it's okay that the k is on the other side, it does not matter. All right, number 12, trying to get r by itself. Start with the constant. The constant is -3, so I'm gonna add 3. Notice I didn't even mention that there's a fraction, right? Because we're not gonna let that freak us out. So -1 plus 3 is 2. All right, next. Remember, this really says r divided by 6. I'm going to multiply by 6. And remember, that's how we're going to show multiplication. On both sides, we're going to use parentheses. And that gives me r equals, and again, use your calculator. Punch it in exactly how we've written it now. Didn't use the multiplication sign, but it didn't matter. It multiplies for you. All right. 13, move the constant, kind of start zipping through some of these. -95, that's -95 minus 10. I wouldn't say -10, so don't punch that negative sign. So that's -105 equals 7b. Now I'm ready to divide by 7. So b is going to equal, 7's cancel. I'm going to create a fraction, -105 on the top, 7 on the bottom, -15. Number 14, start with the constant. Divide by 5. Create a fraction, -25 on the top, 5 on the bottom, -5. All right, so now we're getting to some that we're going to have to combine like terms, maybe do some distribution, things like that. All right, so number 15. I see a bunch more stuff on the left-hand side of the equal sign. Got an X. Do I have any other X's? No. So X doesn't have a like term, so it's just X. I've got a +3 and a +4, so those are both constants. So I'm going to combine them. +3 plus 4 is 7 equals 13. Now it's a one-step problem. Deal with your constant. 13 minus 7 is 6. 16, I've got parentheses. As soon as we see parentheses, a little bell should go off in our hand thinking distribution. So I'm gonna do it underneath this time. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna do 8 times 6 and 8 times negative 7x. That's gonna give me 272 equals 8 times 6 is 48. Guys, I knew what 8 times 6 was, but I still check myself. So you use the calculator. I'm gonna do 8 times -7. I can't put the x in there, so don't. That's going to give me -56, but then don't forget it had an x with it, okay? Next, I'm going to deal with the constant first, right? Constant first, so that's 48. So I'm going to subtract both sides by 48. I'm definitely going to use the calculator for 272 minus 48. That gives me 224. Equals -56x, right? That cancels, everything else came down. I'm gonna divide by a -56. My pen's running out, hopefully it'll get me through this. 224 on top. -56 on the bottom. And there you go, -4. So that's gonna be -4 equals x. Now if you wanna write it x equals -4, either one of those are correct. So multiple choice test, realize that both of those things mean the same thing, okay? Solving each inequality in graphic solution. Remember, we've got a little rule. If we divide or multiply by a negative, we're gonna have to flip the sign. So let's see if there are any like that on this. 17, I'm gonna start the same way. So I've got 4 plus 5x is greater than -61. Start with the constant, it's a +4. I'm gonna subtract 4. -61 minus 4. That's how I would read that, so that's how I'm going to punch it in. Did I multiply or divide by a negative? Nope, I just subtracted. Now I'm going to divide by 5. Is there a negative on the bottom? No, it's a +5, so I'm just dividing by 5. And that's going to give me x is greater than, create a fraction. I'm going to do -65 on the top. 5 on the bottom, -13. So I know I'm going to put something at -13, which is right there. It's going to be an open circle because there's no line underneath. I need all the numbers that are greater than -13. But again, our rule, or our little trick, if x is on the left-hand side, treat that like an arrow. It's pointing to the right. So that's the side I'm going to shade. Okay? 18. Start with the constant. Let me rewrite it. Start with the constant. It's -6, so I'm going to add 6 to make it go away on that side. -7 plus 6 is -1. That leaves me with a p over 9. Remember, that says p divided by 9. I'm going to get rid of that 9 by multiplying both sides by 9. Did I multiply by a negative? No. I don't care that that number there is negative. It's what did I multiply it by? It's a positive, so my sign's going to keep pointing the same direction. Those are going to cancel. That's going to give me p is greater than or equal to. I want you to notice this. I can punch it in my calculator exactly how I see it right there.
Is Faye in there?
She is. She's right back there.
You have here, Ryan.
All right, so if you notice, it doesn't matter which way I punch it in my calculator. I had my 9 in front, so I put it in front. It's still going to give me the same answer of -9. Okay, so now we know we're going to -9. We know we're going to put something right here. We know that. It's got a line underneath, so we're going to close it. Variables on the left-hand side, so treat that like an arrow. And there you go. So, or you can think of it this way. I need all my numbers. That's what that P stands for. All the numbers that are greater than or equal to -9. Well, these are all the numbers that are greater than or equal to -9. Remember, this arrow means it goes on forever. All right? So we still haven't had to flip the sign. Let's see if we have to on this one. Start with the constant. Let me rewrite it. My constant is a -7 or a -7. I'm going to add 7. Oh, I wrote 8. Said 7, wrote 8. That leaves me k over 6 is less than -8 plus 7. Gives me a -1. This says k divided by 6. I'm going to multiply both sides by 6. K is less than -6. I'm going to -6 and I'm putting something. It's going to be an open circle because there's no line there. K is on the left hand side, my variable's on the left, treat that like an arrow. I'm going to shade that way. Still didn't multiply or divide by a negative. So let's see, you know what, I don't think we have to on this one either. But always keep that in mind. As soon as you see those inequalities, you have to remember that rule. So I've got -110 less than or equal to 8n minus 6. Start with the constant, excuse me. It's -6. I'm going to add 6. -110 plus 6. Type it in exactly how you would read it. Gives me -104 is greater or less than or equal to 8n. I'm going to divide by 8. Is there a negative? Nope. Divide by 8. I don't care about that negative on top. I only care about the one on the bottom. Create a fraction. -104 over 8, -13. So I need, now look at this one, my variable's not on the left, so I can't really use my arrow thing. So I'm gonna go to -13, I'm gonna put a closed circle. So basically I need, the part I shade, all those numbers have to be greater than -13. Well, that would be to the right hand side. And there you go. All right, so that's that. See y'all in class.